Well, today is World Earth Day. 190 countries will mark the event, which aims to raise awareness of various environmental causes. For more, let's speak to Kathleen Rogers, president of Earth Day Network. Ms. Rogers, thank you very much for speaking to France 24 this Monday. I'd like to begin by asking you, is what we're seeing in London, these Extinction Rebellion protests, do you think that's the right way to exact change?
Well, I think at this point we've faced decades of inertia. Extinction Rebellion's really interesting because it marks the first real global or about to become global set of demonstrations around species. We are facing massive extinction, as you know, with pollinators, frogs, insects, sort of the species that underpin our food and livelihoods. And so I'm seeing the youth in particular joining in for the first time in quite a long time. And while it is very inconvenient for people in London and the rest of the world where these strikes are taking place, climate change is probably the most inconvenient thing that will ever happen to us. And so I'm glad to see the youth engaged, and I'm hoping it becomes part of something bigger as we move towards the 50th anniversary of Earth Day.
Indeed, climate change, perhaps the most inconvenient thing and the more urgent than ever, isn't it? 20 warmest years on record have been in the past 22 years. How can we reverse that trend?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one, we're running a campaign globally with our tens of thousands of partners called Vote Earth. We have to start connecting our voting to the politicians' records on the environment, whether it's climate change or development. In both cases, it's critically important that we do that. And we're not doing it. There's not a single country on Earth that is voting because of climate change. And that has to be something that we're moving away from and moving towards people who represent us taking clear stance on climate. But in addition to that, I think there are many things that people can do. They can get engaged in their community because I think it starts there. And the more diverse this movement is, the more inclusive it is. I think that people will start to respond. We have to also vote with our pocketbooks. And so I think investments in green technologies, we certainly have the technologies to begin to reverse this, but we need the political will and investment to continue to do that. And we are seeing investments in renewables skyrocket. But it's going to take a lot more and a bigger commitment and certainty in the marketplace if we want this green revolution to really take hold. And thank God it did in the 1800s. And it was because governments joined together to promote the Industrial Revolution. And now we have the opportunity to do that again in a much cleaner way. And so the money's there. Corporations and investors and garage inventors are all ready. And with Greta and the rest of the youth joining the movement, I think you'll begin to see a substantial change. Again, we have a year to really accomplish this. 2020 is a very important year. The Sustainable Development Goals are coming due. Countries are supposed to up their climate commitments, and they're slipping further back. There are 60 to 70 countries holding elections worldwide, and of course, our 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So we're hoping this combination of factors in what we're calling Earth Year 2020 will really make a difference. I think it's existential, and it's hard for us to think about that when we go about my life or anybody else's life, but it is becoming a crisis, and we're seeing people on the move, climate refugees. And so it's time, and I think 2020 represents the opportunity to sort of have the country come together, or the countries come together and do something about it. Time is slipping away.
Indeed, an urgent call ahead of next year's 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Kathleen Rogers, thank you very much for speaking to France 24.
Okay.